When you depend too much on others, you slowly start giving away pieces of yourself. It happens quietly. You ask someone else to make choices for you because you are afraid of making the wrong one. You wait for someone to validate your ideas before you dare to believe in them. You look for love, recognition, or comfort outside of yourself because you have forgotten how to find it within. And in that process, you weaken your own inner power. You hand it over, piece by piece, until one day you realize you are living someone else's life instead of your own. Dependency feels safe in the beginning. It feels easier to let someone else decide, to lean on their approval, to rely on their strength when you feel weak. But safety is not the same as strength, and comfort is not the same as growth. The more you depend on others, the less you trust yourself. The less you trust yourself, the less capable you become of standing on your own feet. And slowly you forget the truth that you were born with everything you need to rise. You see, every time you place your happiness in someone else's hands, you make yourself vulnerable to disappointment. People change. Circumstances change. Even those who love you cannot always carry you. And if your entire sense of self is tied to their presence, what happens when they are no longer there? You collapse. You feel empty. You begin to question your worth, forgetting that your worth was never theirs to define. Psychology tells us that dependency often grows out of fear. The fear of being alone, the fear of failing, the fear of rejection. But here is the paradox of the very dependency that comes from fear ends up feeding more fear. The more you depend, the more fragile you become. And the more fragile you become, the more terrified you are of standing on your own. It becomes a cycle that steals your confidence, your courage, and your freedom. But let me remind you of something profound. Your strength does not come from another person. It comes from within you. The courage you are searching for is already in your spirit. The clarity you are waiting for is already in your mind. The love you are desperate to receive is already inside your heart. Dependency convinces you that you are powerless, but life itself is proof that you are not. Look back at the times you thought you could not survive, and yet you did. Remember the moments you thought you had no strength left, and yet you found it. That was you, not anyone else. You carried yourself through. Dependency is not only about people, it is also about outcomes. We depend on success to feel valuable. We depend on recognition to feel seen. We depend on circumstances to align before we allow ourselves to be happy. But the truth is, if your sense of power depends on things outside of you, it will always be unstable. External things are temporary. Internal strength is permanent. Philosophers often remind us that true freedom is the ability to live without needing permission. And that is the essence of breaking dependency. When you stop depending on others for validation, you stop living by their script. When you stop depending on others to rescue you, you learn to rescue yourself. And when you stop depending on others to complete you, you realize you were never incomplete. Of course, this does not mean you must walk through life isolated. We all need support, love, connection. But there is a difference between sharing your journey with someone and depending on them to carry it for you. Relationships thrive when two whole individuals choose to walk side by side, not when one person leans entirely on another. Strength is not found in clinging. It is found in standing tall and then choosing to extend your hand freely, not out of desperation, but out of strength. When you stop depending, something remarkable happens. You discover your true power. Suddenly, your decisions are your own. Your failures teach you instead of breaking you. Your successes feel authentic because you earned them, not because someone else handed them to you. You begin to walk with a kind of quiet confidence, knowing that while others may support you, your foundation is unshakable because it is built on yourself. And this is where independence transforms into dignity. Because depending too much on others often leads to compromise. You bend your truth to keep them close. You silence your voice to avoid displeasing them. You give up pieces of yourself just to feel secure. But when you reclaim your inner power, you no longer need to beg for acceptance. You stand as you are. And those who truly value you will respect you more for it. So stop depending on another to define your worth. Stop depending on another to create your happiness. Stop depending on another to lead your path. Because the moment you place your life in someone else's hands, you risk losing yourself. And losing yourself is the greatest loss of all. Life has a way of testing us. It does not always arrive with comfort or certainty. More often, it arrives with storms. There will be seasons when you face rejection, when people you relied on walk away, when the world feels heavy and lonely. And in those moments, if your entire strength is tied to someone else's presence, you will feel as though you cannot survive without them. But the truth is, you can. And not only can you survive, you can rise stronger, wiser, and more resilient than before. Resilience is not something handed to you by another person. It is not a gift someone else can give. Resilience is something you build within yourself, step by step, struggle by struggle. Every hardship becomes a brick. Every disappointment becomes cement. And over time, those bricks and cement form a foundation so strong that no storm can shake it. That foundation is called self-reliance. We often think of self-reliance as being alone, but that is not true. Self-reliance is not isolation, it is independence of. It is the quiet assurance that even if everything around you collapses, you will not collapse with it. It is the unshakable belief that you are capable of standing up after every fall. That does not mean you never accept help, but it does mean you never make help your only lifeline. Think about the difference between leaning on a wall and standing on your own legs. If the wall is removed, off you fall. But if your legs are strong, you remain standing regardless of whether the wall is there or not. This is what self-reliance does for your spirit. It strengthens your inner legs so that you do not collapse when support is taken away. Psychologically, dependency creates fragility. When you place your sense of worth in another person's approval, a single word from them can lift you or destroy you. When your happiness depends on someone else's presence, their absence feels like the end of your world. But resilience built through self-reliance changes everything. You begin to find stability inside, and that stability is not shaken by the temporary movements of the outside world. Philosophically, resilience is rooted in acceptance. Life is not meant to be controlled. People are not meant to be possessions. The world will not always align with your desires. When you depend on others to carry your happiness, you are setting yourself up for disappointment, because no one can guarantee permanence. But when you shift that focus inward, you find a strength that does not vanish with circumstances. You begin to realize that pain is not the enemy, it is the teacher. Every time life breaks something within you, it also builds something deeper if you choose to let it. I want you to remember a simple truth. Resilience is not about never falling. It is about always rising. The ones who seem the strongest are not the ones who never faced hardship, but the ones who allowed hardship to shape their character instead of destroying it. And here is the secret: every time you rise by yourself, you trust yourself a little more. And every time you trust yourself a little more, you depend a little less on another. Dependency convinces you that you cannot survive without someone's presence. Resilience proves to you that you can. Dependency says, I am weak without them. Resilience says, I am strong because of me. And this shift in mindset changes your entire life. You no longer fear rejection because you know it cannot destroy you. You no longer cling desperately to relationships because you know your survival does not depend on them. You no longer live in fear of being left behind because you trust your ability to move forward alone if necessary. This is not a call to push people away. It is not a call to reject love, support, or companionship, but it is a call to remember that those things are blessings, not necessities for survival. Relationships are richer when they are based on choice, not dependency. When two resilient people walk together, they share strength rather than drain it. When you are self-reliant, you can love more freely because you are not loving out of fear of being abandoned. You are loving out of abundance. So if life tests you, if people walk away, if support disappears, do not crumble. Use those moments as opportunities to prove your own strength to yourself. Build resilience like a muscle. Every challenge is a weight. Every time you lift it, you grow stronger. And eventually, you will realize that what once broke you no longer has the same power over you. That is the gift of self-reliance. And perhaps the most liberating part of resilience is this: you stop waiting. You stop waiting for someone to save you, or for someone to validate you, for someone to complete you. You realize that while others may walk with you, only you can carry yourself through the darkest nights. And when you finally believe that, fear loses its grip. Because what can the world take away from someone who has already built their strength within?